Hiya guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another rules breakdown. And this time we're going to be looking at this, the Dying Earth role-playing game from Pelgrane Press, and it came out in 2001. Now while this came out in the middle of the D20 fad, where every game was coming out using the Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition rule set, this is not one of those games. It has its own rules, and they are very unique. Now, while they use certain terms which are very familiar from other games, things like dice pool, they're used slightly differently. Now, I have to admit, these rules don't feel exactly to my taste, but they've got some really interesting things in them. Now, this leads to them being slightly overly complex in my mind, but there's a lot of interesting stuff in here, and they're definitely worth a look. Now, as usual, I'm going to be using a character or NPC out of it, and the book has a sample adventure. And on page 181, we've got some NPCs. We've got Elaplaster, Posasmus, Dame Belevant, and Ugnatha. And those are the characters I'll be using as examples as we go through these rules. But anyway, let's have a look at the rules. So skills are dealt with through dice pools, but they don't work quite the same way as other games. If we go on to page 27, we can see ratings. Each number you assign to an ability during character creation is that ability's rating. Your rating and ability gives you a pool of points you may spend when using that ability. So let's have a look at the NPCs we've got. We've got Elaplaster here. His ratings are Persuasion 12, Rebuff 12, Attack 2, Defense 2, Health 2, Appraisal 2, Etiquette 2, Pedantry 10, Perception 4, and Stewardship 5. So those are his pools for those abilities. So we'll say that he's going to be using his Persuasion 12. So he has 12 points in that, and he rolls 1 dice. So we throw 1 dice, and he gets a 5. Well, what does that mean? Well, over the page, we've got the failure chart here. A 1 is dismal, 2 is quotidian, exasperating, hair's breadth, prosaic is what he's got, and an illustrious success. Dismal failure means you not only failed, but it's bad. It costs you a levy of 2 points, so you lose an extra 2 points from your pool. So his pool of 12 would have dropped to 10. And not only does it cost 1 point to re-roll this, it would cost 3 points if he'd rolled a 1. Quotidian ordinary failure yields no unexpected results. An exasperating failure is just short, but it's not going to have devastatingly bad effects. A hair's breadth success on a 4 is ordinary, but the Games Master might decide to have some minor annoyance mar your success. But it does mention a narrow win is a win nonetheless. Prosaic success on a 5 means you got what you wanted, no more, no less. An illustrious success is as good as it gets. You not only succeed, you do so in a devastating, impressive manner. You get an 2-point boon to the pool of the ability you used. So his 12 will actually go up to 14. Because your pools don't refresh each combat round, they refresh often after you perform a specific task for that ability, or it mentions that it might refresh after about an hour or so. But there's role-playing effects that you have to do certain rituals and things to recharge certain abilities. Further on to this, we have boons and levies. So we mentioned the boons already, an extra point or two to your dice pool. A levy is a cost to your dice pool. We have bonuses and penalties, where you can get a bonus to your dice roll, or a penalty to your dice roll. It mentions that if you get a -3 penalty, then it becomes impossible to roll successes. And it just becomes a test between the Games Master to see if the player's sharp enough to realise they have no chance of succeeding now. It mentions about refreshing your pools. Carrying on through the section, though, we've got adjusting the task difficulty by adding boons, bonuses and penalties. We've got limits. Some tasks are limited in time, so you can't afford all the time for rerolls. It mentions diving for cover has a limit of 1. So you only get 1 chance to do it, so it doesn't matter how big your dice pool is. You will just roll 1d6 and you'll succeed or fail. Carrying on, we've got contests. So there'll be 2 players playing against each other trying to get the highest result. But the extra level to this is you can spend 3 points from your dice pool to force the other player to re-roll their dice. So even if they've rolled a 6, the highest level of success, if you've got a larger dice pool, you can force them to re-roll that and hopefully get a worse level of success. And we've got wallops. If your ability rating is 5 points higher, not the current dice pool, the ability rating at the beginning, you can spend 5 points out of your dice pool to just win. Your ability is so much larger than the opponent's that you just win. It doesn't matter. And a couple of other things. First of all, trumping. So, certain abilities trump one another. And when that happens, the trumped ability gets a levy of 1 point. It loses 1 point from its pool. Now these are detailed out what trumps one another on page 40 in this little chart. So, looking at our example character, persuasion of feuds. So, he is trumped, or he trumps loyally. So if he's going against somebody who has loyally, they lose 1 point from their pool. He is trumped by penetrating. So if he's going against somebody penetrating, then he loses 1 point from his pool. Going back, we have multiple targets. Now, this mainly you describe to your GM why this works, but the only rule event is if you're trying to wallop them, in which case they add all of their pools together, and you still must exceed that by 5. Sorry, ability ratings, not pool. Ability ratings together, and you must beat that by 5 to be able to wallop them. So somebody who has an absolutely massive ability can still wallop a group of weaker characters. And ganging up. Well, again, this is, you detail out how it will work. It's limited because so many people can only gather around you, or multiple people joining an argument won't have an effect. But the Games Master determines that when ganging up does provide a benefit, the target suffers a levy of X on all reactive actions. So, in combat, for example, if you're attacked, and then attacked again, you suffer a levy on your dice pool because you've already had one reactive action. If you get attacked a third time, then you'll be suffering a levy of 2 on your dice pool because you've been attacked twice. But basically the system is you roll 1 dice and you've got a dice pool to pay for rerolls, with all of those other things taken into account, where your dice pool can get larger, can get smaller, that it will cost you more if you roll really low, etc, etc. You're trying to get a 6 or the highest possible on the dice. But if you're just attempting basic tasks, a 4, 5 or a 6 will work just as well. And initiative. Well, it's really simple. It's dealt with on page 33, and it's based on your current dice pool. Largest dice pool goes first, working your way down. In the event of a tie, you roll a d6 and see who gets the highest, and that determines ties. And that's as simple as it is. And so combat, well, it's like any other skill roll. You're using your dice pool to cause rerolls against your opponent. But instead of using the other skills and ability pools, you're using an attack style. So strength, speed, finesse, cunning, ferocity, caution. And it's got a list here on page 46 of what they trump and what they are trumped by. So your dice pool is increased or is decreased, or the opponent's is decreased if the trumping comes into play. You also have various things depending on what style you're using, and your weapons have advantages and disadvantages. So the axe here, your opponent's health rolls against axe hits suffer a levy of 1, so their dice pool to resist damage is reduced. Disadvantages, you must have at least 4 attack points to properly wield an axe, and there's other rules there if your dice pool falls below that. And that's it. It's a skill roll, but you're adding from your weapon and what style you're using. So you've been hit, or you've hit somebody. Whoever's taken damage has to make a health roll. And that's dealt with here on page 54. Each time you fail a health roll, you suffer an injury. So, the character here has taken a hit. He's got a health of 2, so he gets to roll without spending any points from his pool. He rolls, he gets a 4, so he succeeds. So he suffers no injury. If he'd rolled a 3 or lower, then he'd be able to spend points from his dice pool to try and re-roll, unless it was a 1 where he would lose far too many points from his health pool to be able to re-roll. And it's as simple as that. If you take damage, you're making a health roll. If you succeed, you take no damage at all. If you fail, you take damage. But what does a point of damage make? Well, it details it right underneath. A single injury means you are hurt. You can act normally, but suffer a levy of 2 when attempting any action. So your dice pools are all decreased. If you suffer 2 injuries, you are down. All you can do is lie prone, or perhaps writhe in pain. If you have no one else to defend you, you're at your enemy's mercy. It is a trivial matter for them to dispatch you. In game terms, he gets an automatic success on his attack. If you suffer 3 injuries, you are dead if you have no health points left, or dying. If you're dying, you have 15 minutes to live per remaining health point. In some circumstances, the worst consequence you risk from a failed health roll is unconsciousness. So somebody can knock you to the ground and knock you unconscious instead of killing you. And so advancement. Well, it's dealt on page 122. First of all, you need improvement points. These are the experience points of the system. You gain improvement points from 2 things. Firstly of all, you get improvement points from turning up. You get 1 point per session for just turning up and being there. But otherwise, it's based on taglines. Your character will have various taglines, and if you put them in during play, you earn further improvement points, depending on the relevance of them. So, in the context of the line bears no real relationship to the action, you get no points. If the context of the line applies to the situation, but is no more noteworthy or entertaining than the spontaneously created lines of dialogue around it, you get 1 point. If the line seems especially appropriate, you get 2 points. If the line arouses emotion amongst the players and GM, you get 3 points. Laughter is the most common response. So you say one of your taglines, everybody laughs, you get 3 experience in that session. If you said it 6 times and everybody laughed every time, you'd be getting 18 points. But that's how you get them. Now, spending them, it costs 3 improvement points to gain 1 rating point. Rating points in Magic cost twice of those any other ability. And you can spend 5 improvement points for 1 rating point in a secondary style of any of the following abilities: persuasion, rebuff, attack, or defense. And there's an improvement point cost table there. So you're getting your points for turning up and using your taglines, and then you're spending them to increase your different abilities. So that's the Dying Earth role-playing game. Now, there's a lot I've skipped out. There's a lot more to this game, especially amongst you playing at different levels, where you end up having followers and NPCs helping your characters out. But I've basically gone over, as in most of these rule breakdowns, enough to get you through your first couple of sessions. The rules themselves seem overly complex to me for stripping them down to this basic format. There's a lot to remember there. But I think as you played it and got used to it, things would speed up and you would get used to keeping track of your dice pools, because that's going to be a large element of this game. Keeping track of your dice pools, because you might need to use them before you've had a chance to do the ritual or spend the time for it to refresh fully. But anyway, as usual, I think I've been wittering on for long enough, so thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.